According to the globe model, the surface of all standing water must have a certain degree of convexity. Based on the alleged globe circumference of about 25,000 miles, the Earth must curve away from you at 8 inches per mile squared. The formula is simple and accurate over all visible distances and has been proven by engineering software. At just 10 miles, there should be a measurable curvature drop of 67 feet, 20 miles, 267 feet, 60 miles, 2,400 feet. To calculate what amount should be hidden behind the alleged globe bulge, you can use an online calculator like this one. We can prove that this curvature does not exist. For example, in this video I filmed the opposite shore 21.03 miles away. You can see both the laser source and its reflection on the water. That laser in the opposite shore should have been between 218 to 223 feet below the globe horizon. No curvature is present. At a different lake in freezing conditions, the source of this distant laser should have been 168 feet below the curvature. No curvature is present. If the Earth were a globe with a curvature drop roughly equal to 8 inches per mile squared, and the surface of the Earth and its atmosphere allegedly rotated at approximately 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, as claimed by the globe model, you'd assume those claims would be vital to NASA and the military for modeling and building aircraft. Instead, you'll see through declassified documents that government agencies and their contractors repeatedly assumed a flat and stationary Earth. For example, this NASA document assumes a flat, non-rotating Earth. Georgia Institute of Technology, on behalf of NASA, the model used is a flat, non-rotating Earth. Technical memo from the NASA Langley Research Center, flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA Technical Memorandum, flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA publication on the derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model, flat, non-rotating Earth, and flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA contractor, flat, non-rotating Earth, and flat Earth assumptions. NASA Ames Research Center, non-rotating flat Earth. Army Research Laboratory, flat Earth. Army Research Laboratory, propagation of electromagnetic fields over a flat Earth. Army Research Laboratory, a flat Earth approximation provides the best estimate. NASA Technical Paper, stationary atmosphere over a flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA Technical Memo, a non-rotating Earth. MIT Department of Aeronautics and Astronautics, flat Earth, flat Earth. NASA Memo, flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA Contractor Report, assumption based on the Earth is flat and non-rotating. NASA Technical Memo, flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA Technical Paper, stationary atmosphere and flat, non-rotating Earth assumptions. NASA Technical Note, flat, non-rotating Earth. NASA Langley Research Center, flat, non-rotating Earth. Army Research Laboratory, these equations assume a flat Earth. Even the Soviets made their assumptions based on a flat Earth. If the Earth were a ball and rotated at 1,000 miles per hour, you obviously would not see the repeated engineering assumptions that the Earth is flat and stationary. According to the globe model, there is a point on the globe where the alleged curvature of the Earth begins to obstruct distant objects. Under the globe, this point is referred to as the horizon and is marked by an X on the diagram. One can determine the distance to the alleged globe horizon in miles by taking the square root of the observer's height in feet and multiplying by 1.225, or you can simply use an online calculator like this one or this one. We can prove there is no globe geometric horizon and therefore no globe. In this test, infamously referred to as the Black Swan, with a camera height of only 1 foot, the globe horizon would have to be closer than a mere 1.2 miles. 1.2 miles would be the maximum distance to the horizon under the globe. But the closest platform on the right was 6.2 miles away, and the platform on the left was 9.4 miles away. As you can see, the horizon is miles beyond 9.4 miles, belying the globe model. In this video, with an observation height of 105 feet, the globe horizon would have to be closer than 12.6 miles. But the horizon is well beyond the third platform, that's 26.4 miles away. Again, there is no bulge and no geometric horizon. The globe fails. For this test, filmed by an engineer, the globe horizon would have to be closer than 8.2 miles. Instead, the apparent horizon is well beyond 14.6 miles. The globe fails. For this test, filmed by a PhD, the horizon would have to be closer than 2.3 miles. Instead, the apparent horizon is many miles beyond 11.2 miles. You can even see a boat further away and perspectively higher than the base of the wind turbines, proving there is no curvature whatsoever, not even an inch. The globe fails. In this video, the globe horizon would have to be closer than 1.9 miles. As you can see, the horizon is beyond the bird rack that was 11.2 miles away, proving the globe faults. Again and again, the globe geometric horizon is proven to not exist. Therefore, the globe cannot exist. As I have proven and will continue to prove, when visibility is high without miraging, we see way too far in total contradiction to the globe model. Because of these repeatable observations that anyone can perform, the only counterclaim the globe propagandist has is refraction. As though refraction has this fairy tale property that inexplicably removes all evidence of giant bulges of Earth curvature, the globe claim is patently false. As shown here and in countless examples, refraction is real. It compresses, it stretches, it distorts, it obscures and mirages. You can see it with your own eyes. But the globe propagandists have hijacked the term refraction and took this observable reality and deceptively changed refraction into an imaginary Earth curvature removing device. In my last video, I shared this footage proving the Earth is flat. The globe horizon was supposed to be closer than 2.3 miles, but the horizon is many miles beyond 11.2 miles. The globe bulge was supposed to be blocking 25 feet of the first turbine and blocking 53 feet of the furthest turbine. Instead, you can see the base of the turbines getting perspectively higher instead of sinking below the supposed Earth bulge as the ball would require. The globe propagandist's only counterclaim is that refraction caused the Earth bulge to disappear without a trace and then reappear miles beyond 11.2 miles, all without affecting the 6 turbines in between. I hope you already see that the refraction claim is without merit. I filmed this footage as my wife walked from the top of the beach all the way to the water's edge where she placed a 4-foot mirror into the water 6.3 miles away. I filmed her the entire way, but the globe curvature was supposed to be hiding 12 feet. But look at this still from the video. There is absolutely no distortion of the distant shore. But this 12 feet here should be behind the curvature of the Earth, like this. Did that 12 feet hop the curvature without causing a cascade of distortion? If 12 feet jumped the curvature, wouldn't it then overlap the 12 feet above it, causing manifest distortion? Are we to believe that every inch up to at least 100 feet uniformly arced perfectly over the curvature to present this flat, non-distorted distant shore? Ridiculous. In this example I shared in my Flat Earth Fact Video 1, the distant shore was 21.03 miles away. You can see the non-distorted distant shore. 223 feet should have been hidden behind the Earth curvature, but none of it is. If 223 feet hopped over the curvature, where is the manifest distortion, as that 223 feet would then overlap the 223 feet above it? There is zero evidence of this refraction distortion, and the mountain behind evinces the same. At the same spot, I then filmed my friend's laser that should have been 218 feet below the horizon. Not only did I film the bright laser source, but I also filmed the reflection of the laser source on the water, which would have appeared somewhere around here on a ball. Think about that reflection on the water. Bear in mind that the reflection would have been angled away from my point of view, but the giant bulge supposedly just disappeared, and everything in the distance wrapped around the Earth curvature perfectly to keep the image intact. Furthermore, if that nonsensical refraction event happened, why didn't the bulge itself jump up and still continue to block the laser? How did refraction affect everything but the closer giant bulge, but instead made the bulge disappear? To the honest and reasonable thinking person, the refraction argument of the globe propagandist is utter nonsense and should be shunned as such. According to NASA, there were no pictures of the Earth from space from 1972 until 2015. 43 years without a photograph of the Earth from space. Quoting Robert Simon, who is NASA's lead visualizer, NASA's website reads, "The last time anyone took a photograph from above low Earth orbit that showed an entire hemisphere, one side of a globe, was in 1972 during Apollo 17. We'll talk about the fake Apollo moon missions later, but 43 years is still shocking to most people. This is the 2002 blue marble that hangs in many classrooms and was even the wallpaper on your iPhone. It certainly looks real, and most people would think it is, but it's admittedly a fake image created by NASA. According to NASA, then we wrapped the flat map around a ball. My part was integrating the surface clouds and oceans to match people's expectations of how Earth looks from space. That ball became the famous blue marble. So, this phony globe was designed to match people's expectation of how Earth looks from space. Yet, it looks as real as anything produced by NASA. In fact, faking space seems to be an admitted NASA standard. According to Wired magazine, in this article titled, "How NASA Visualizes Stunning Worlds Without Really Seeing Them, Making Space Seem Real." Images sure don't come straight out of Space Telescope looking press release ready. Each visualization is the result of artists and planetary scientists collaborating to convert blips on a data readout into something that looks like a planet, all while remaining scientifically plausible. Making space seem real. Matching people's expectations. Scientifically plausible. I don't care how you whitewash it. This isn't science at all. This is propaganda designed to make you believe in outer space. After the admitted 2002 blue marble fakery, NASA claims that they took an actual photograph of the Earth from space in July 2015. That's the first alleged photograph in 43 years. Here it is. Of course, this alleged 2015 photo doesn't look much different than the admitted fake globe image of 2002. NASA artists can admittedly create fake images of the Earth that look real, and so why would anyone believe this one is real? If flat maps can be wrapped around a ball to create a fake globe, then why couldn't they even wrap weather radar data onto a globe in real time? That's exactly what they do. But let's take this first supposed photograph in 43 years, rotate it, and zoom in. The word sex is spelled in the clouds. What's even more strange is the fact that it closely resembles a Greek 666. You know, the mark of the beast from Revelation. Again, this isn't cherry-picking one of thousands of images. This is the first supposed photograph of the Earth from space in 43 years, and it just so happens to have either a sex or a Greek 666 spelled in the clouds. Regardless, NASA's admitted standard of fakery to making space seem real is enough for any sensible person to reasonably doubt anything produced by NASA and its subsidiaries.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Take a gas, vacuum of equal volume, and we're going to remove the barrier. You know what's going to happen spontaneously, right? The gas is going to fill the available volume.
Is the expansion of a gas into a vacuum. I have in one of these bulbs some bromine, and in the other I have a vacuum. And if I open the tap between these two, you will see spontaneously the bromine rush from one to the other. Now that is the simplest change we can have, perhaps, because all that happens is a change in entropy. In this case, the expansion into a vacuum, nothing else is involved. There's no energy change, there's no temperature change, there's no change except entropy.
When you suggest that you have space, therefore second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply, it's a begging the question fallacy. So often I will ask fundamentalist religious zealots, beyond your fundamentalist religious zealot belief that the sky is a vacuum, how can you have gas pressure without a container? Because the natural instinct of a fundamentalist globe-believing fundy, it's a bit redundant, is to beg the question of the sky vacuum and then tell us that obviously the second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply because the gas isn't filling my presupposition that the sky is a vacuum. Well, that's a begging the question fallacy, to assume that you've got a sky vacuum and therefore not require a justification for its violation of that particular law. That would be an entropy increase, or standard gas law, the volume that you would calculate it with would be the volume of space the gas has to fill. And if the sky was a vacuum, that would be an availability of volume for the gas we breathe to fill. And fill it must. That's what gas does. It expands in all directions. So the gas we're breathing, which is at pressure, would fill the sky vacuum. Now their response is often to say, well, we have a gas pressure gradient, which is merely a delta of the original question and assertion when you've got a sky vacuum belief. How can you have gas pressure in the first instance without a container? And they would say, well, a delta of gas pressure gradient is something we experience. It's like, well, how did you achieve the gas pressure in the first place without containment? And the answer is you can't. It stands directly in violation of several natural laws. Without the container, there can be no pressure. Therefore, if the sky was a vacuum, as asserted in the heliocentric rhetoric, then the gas we breathe would fill the space. Outer space, claimed to be a vacuum, is fake. Therefore, any claims from that claim to be sky vacuum are automatically fake, including but not limited to pictures of Earth from space. The region is fake, second law of thermodynamics violation. Therefore, the pictures claimed to have come from the fake region are also fake. Orbits in a sky vacuum, which is also a begging the question fallacy, which I won't detail now, is claimed to take place in a fake place called space. Therefore, automatically fake. Same goes for satellites. All debunked by the second law of thermodynamics and several other laws of nature, descriptions of how things occur always. Standard gas law, Boyle's law, Avogadro's law. These are all violated by the assertion that we have a sky vacuum. We don't. And any stage performance that comes from that region is also fake, including the ISS, taking place on a stage on Earth, on high wire, not in a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum. You can't have orbital mechanics without an assumption of the R value, and we've debunked it with the black swan. But orbits is always going to be a begging the question fallacy to begin with. Nice that we can debunk it with one breath. We debunked R. Bye-bye orbital mechanics. Bye-bye globe Earth.
Nathan Oakley, 1980. Follow his, he does flat earth debates every, Nathan Oakley is my favorite right now. I love Nathan Oakley.
Yeah, me too.
He demolishes people.
Absolutely.
On May 27th, 1931, Auguste Piccard became the first man to reach the stratosphere at an altitude of 51,775 feet. That's much higher than the maximum cruising altitude of all existing commercial flights. In this popular science article, Piccard described the Earth as follows. It seemed a flat disk with upturned edge. Then in 1933, Russian aeronauts reached an altitude of 62,304 feet. That's higher than the maximum cruising altitude of the Concorde jet and higher than the alleged commercial flights of the MiG-29. This is how popular science described the aeronauts' experience. Looking down, they tried in vain to detect any curvature of the Earth's horizon. Of course, Piccard and the Russians should have seen the curvature of the Earth at those altitudes, but they didn't, even though they wanted to. Kudos to them for their honesty. Although I will be sharing high-altitude balloon footage at much higher elevations proving there is no curvature and no axial rotation, these testimonies from these unbiased aeronauts in the 1930s evince that no one you know has ever seen the curvature of the Earth belying the claims of the globe propagandists. Loran was a naval navigation system that was originally developed during World War II and was allegedly used until the 1990s. In short, it worked by two radio towers on the coast that would transmit radio waves across the ocean. Using the Loran system, a boat then could use the difference in the timing of the radio signals to calculate the vessel's location. These two Loran stations, Sisconset and Bodie Island, for example, were 482 miles apart and could be over 1,000 miles away from the vessel. Using the distance between the Sisconset and Bodie Island stations as an example, the Sisconset station was 625 feet tall, with an added elevation of approximately 10 feet. At that height and distance, according to the dimensions of the alleged globe, that would make a target hidden height of 135,000 feet or 25.4 miles. That means that the Bodie Island Tower would have to be 14,000 feet higher than this weather balloon to have a line of sight with the Sisconset station. But the Bodie Island station was only maybe 150 feet tall, and these signals reached vessels over 1,000 miles away. Furthermore, look at the angle of the tower. The radio waves would be pointed towards space under the globe. There was no Earth curvature shadow blocking any signal from the Loran system. The official explanation is that the radio waves, traveling at the speed of light, mysteriously hugged the surface of the Earth and wrapped around the curvature, inexplicably jumping bulges of water and earth dozens of miles tall. Defying logic and reason, globe claims always include some extraordinary, unproven tell why the Earth curvature simply disappears without a trace. Simply stated, the Loran system is another indication that the Earth is indeed flat.
Okay, we're told the Earth rotates at 15 degrees per hour, one rotation per day. If a plane were taking off from the North Pole at a distance of 1 mile from the geographic North Pole or literal axis of rotation of Earth, that would be a 6.28 mile circumference. That circumference would cover 6.28 miles in one day, or just about a quarter of a mile per hour. If a plane takes off from that runway and heads south towards the equator, it must, by mathematical fact, by physics fact, somehow accelerate its angular momentum that as it was taking off from the North Pole was only just about a quarter of a mile per hour must somehow, when it's going to land at the equator, have accelerated over 1,037 miles per hour of angular momentum. It has never been proven physically that planes do this. There has never been an instrumentation, reading, or measurement provided to prove that this is what airplanes do when flying from north to south towards the equator. And vice versa. A plane taking off from the equator is carrying 1,037 miles per hour angular lateral momentum and must somehow lose over 1,000 miles per hour of that angular momentum in order for it to land safely at the North Pole, that is again only moving at a quarter of a mile per hour. This proves the Earth is stationary, and as many NASA and other government documents proclaim, when doing flight tests, they assume a flat, stationary plane. Globe proponents will tell you this is just because it's an easier way to test things without making it complicated, and so the pilots don't have to do all the difficult math. I would submit to you, because there has never again been any physical proof of their mathematical claims of rotation and conservation of momentum, much less acceleration or deceleration of angular momentum, that these planes carry, that it is more likely that the Earth is just flat and stationary, and that's why these government documents state this. Until someone can provide mechanical measurement of airplanes either gaining 1,000 miles per hour of angular momentum or losing it going from the equator to the North Pole 1,000 miles an hour of angular momentum, this is proof the Earth is a stationary level plane, just as the government's own documents state. Thank you for your time. The Earth is flat and stationary.
On October 14th, 2012, Felix Baumgartner officially reached an altitude of over 128,000 feet. His ascension took approximately 2.5 hours. His launch site was here, and his landing site was here. He landed 44 miles east of his launch site. According to the globe model, at the equator, the ground is allegedly rotating at 1,037 miles per hour. At the 33rd latitude, where Felix was located, the Earth is supposedly rotating at 867 miles per hour. So, if the ground was rotating at 867 miles per hour, then Felix should have landed roughly 2,000 miles to the west in the Pacific Ocean. Obviously, he didn't land in the Pacific Ocean. He actually landed 44 miles east of his launch site. That's the same direction as the Earth's supposed rotation, and absolutely the wrong direction. The alleged rotation of the Earth did not affect Felix's 2.5-hour ascent to that extreme altitude one iota. The globe propagandists want you to believe that the rotation of the ground somehow transferred all of its motion to the air above it, as though air constitutes a solid block stuck to the ground. They also must claim even the thinner upper layers of the atmosphere miraculously speed up to keep up with the ground below, as though the air can be connected to the ground like spokes on a bicycle wheel. The globe claim is patently absurd. In reality, the ground cannot effectively transfer its motion to air. Moreover, the layer of air close to the surface cannot then transfer its motion to the air above it, and so forth. If the Earth did spin as claimed by the globe model, this would result in a 1,000 mile per hour westerly wind, making life impossible. According to Dr. Carl Schofer, but we know of no body the parts of which have much less connection with each other than is the case with the air. The air layer next to the Earth, really dragged along by the communicated motion, would not be able to communicate its motion to the layers above it, for the simple reason that it stands in no connection with them. These upper layers must therefore remain in their place, or, which would signify the same thing, would apparently flow westward with the same rapidity with which the Earth is said to rotate to the east. Now, since the point on the equator, if the Earth rotates on its axis in a day, must move eastward at the rate of 1,250 feet a second, the air would similarly move 1,250 feet westward in a second, which would more than 10 times surpass the velocity of the most fearful hurricane. We cannot perceive the rotation of the Earth in any way. We cannot demonstrate it. There are no air currents which we can justly regard as, or even supposed to be, consequences of this rotation. These facts ought to be proof enough against the existence of the rotation of the Earth. Must it not appear almost absurd in us, preoccupied by what they have taught us in school, to accept a theory of the rotation of the Earth which neither is nor can be proven? Must we not wonder at the readiness of the learned of nearly the entire world, from the time of Copernicus and Kepler, to accept the conception of the rotation of the Earth, and then search afterwards, now for nearly 3.5 centuries, for arguments to maintain it, but of course without being able to find them? Without reasonable question, the Earth is stationary, and Felix Baumgartner proved the same. In my Flat Earth Fact number 10 video, I discussed Felix Baumgartner's proof that the Earth is stationary. To reiterate, according to the globe model, at the location of Felix's ascension, the Earth supposedly spins at the ridiculous speed of 867 miles per hour. Felix's balloon ascent lasted 2.5 hours, which would mean that Felix should have landed over 2,000 miles to the west in the Pacific Ocean if the Earth was spinning. Instead, Felix landed 44 miles to the east, which is the wrong direction, clearly indicating the supposed spin of the Earth had no impact whatsoever on Felix's 2.5-hour ascension in a balloon, despite the fact that the air gets much thinner the higher you go. As Felix's balloon ascended, it should have quickly fallen behind the ground that was spinning at 867 miles per hour, much like what you see here. Belying common sense, the globe faithful claim that the air above the ground impossibly stays uniformly attached to the ground like spokes on a bicycle wheel. Moreover, like the outer edge of the spokes on a bicycle wheel, which would have more distance to travel than the inner part of the wheel, Felix's capsule would have had to inexplicably speed up in the very thin air to keep up with the alleged spinning ground below it. The truth is, the alleged spinning ground cannot effectively communicate its motion to the air above it, and that air cannot then communicate its motion to the air above it, and so forth, as there is no such connection. The Earth is most certainly not spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. But Felix also unwittingly proved the Earth is flat. First, from the inside of Felix's capsule at 128,000 feet, you can see the flat Earth horizon in the distance. Of course, when discussing the Red Bull jump, the media repeatedly showed pictures like this one. No, Felix did not jump over Planet New Mexico. This ridiculous curvature was only created by the camera's wide-angle lens, which is common with GoPro cameras. My own sister even used this image as her one and only proof of the globe. But you don't have to take my word for it. Official storyteller Neil deGrasse Tyson stated the same.
And not only that, they made sure to photograph him standing there with a really wide-angle lens, which curves horizontal lines. So in the photo, you see this curvature of Earth's surface, and he said, "Wow, he's in space. Look at that." No, he's not. At that height, you don't see the curvature of the Earth if you are 2 millimeters above this beach ball. You just don't. That stuff is flat.
Let's assume that Tyson is correct that it would be impossible to see the curvature of the Earth at 128,000 feet on a globe, which contradicts nearly every other globe propagandist out there. Regardless, Felix's indisputable evidence of the flat Earth is the fact that the horizon did not drop 1 iota from ground level all the way up to 128,000 feet. The globe model states that the horizon, marked by an X, constitutes a physical barrier where the ground begins to obstruct distant objects. So once you ascend under the globe, that physical, tangible barrier should begin to drop. However, flat earthers believe that the horizon is a matter of perspective. So even though the horizon can be obstructed by haze, clouds, atmospheric conditions, miraging, lighting conditions, location of the sun, etc., the horizon would generally remain at eye level like you see in this example. Notice the perceived horizon remained in the same spot. This is Felix's capsule, approximately 10 feet off of the ground. Here's another angle of the dangling capsule. This is the point where Felix entered the capsule. Here it is again. I've marked where the perceived horizon is located in the distance. In this clip, Baumgartner is over 128,000 feet. Incomplete contradiction to the globe model, the horizon line didn't drop one iota, proving the horizon indeed rises to eye level. As another example, the model on the left illustrates what horizon drop should have occurred on the globe if it were real. The model on the right shows what would happen on a flat Earth as the horizon rises to eye level. If the globe was real, the horizon drop should have been obvious and unmistakable, but there was no horizon drop. Obviously, Felix's jump matches the flat Earth perfectly, proving the globe faults. Yes, flat Earth is our reality.
That stuff is flat.
Before the start of World War II, German scientists developed a blind landing navigation system for aircraft. Essentially, aircraft tuned in to a certain frequency would know the location of the center of the runway by using a radio beacon as a guide. After World War II broke out, German military scientists soon realized that the same technology could enable German bombers to locate specific targets in England even in the darkest of nights. This secret system was called Knickebein. In short, the radio beam from a single transmitter would guide the German bombers on a line towards the target, but one beam could not tell the bomber when they were over the target. A second transmitter was set up so its beam crossed over the target, indicating when the airplanes should drop the bombs. British intelligence, led by R.V. Jones, slowly became aware that such bombing beams may have existed, and presented the information to Frederick Lindemann, Winston Churchill's leading science advisor. But Lindemann and others said such a targeting system would be impossible, because the supposed curvature of the Earth would block the high-frequency beams, because VHF waves do not even allegedly bend around the curvature of the Earth.
Dr. Jones took the message to Professor Lindemann, his old tutor and now scientific advisor to Winston Churchill, and tried to persuade him of the serious threat posed by the Knickebein beams. But Lindemann was not convinced, pointing out that at the high frequencies necessary for an accurate beam, the curvature of the Earth would prevent its being directed against targets in Britain.
Lindemann was conceptually and mathematically right. VHF beams would require a direct line of sight with the German bombers, and England was simply too far away. The first of these Knickebein transmitters was set up on Stolberg Hill near Denmark. Another transmitter was set up at Kleve in western Germany. Stolberg Hill was located 443 miles away from Derby, England. The hill was only 142 feet high, and the transmitter was 152 feet high for a combined height of 294 feet. Based on the globe math, the Earth's curvature would hide 118,425 feet. The other transmitter was in Kleve. It only has an elevation of 39 feet combined with a 100-foot tower. 139-foot height with a distance of 331 miles means that the curvature of the Earth would hide 66,722 feet. In other words, under the globe, a German bomber would need to be higher than 118,425 feet to be within the line of sight of the Knickebein system. But the maximum cruising altitude of a German bomber was only 19,200 feet. Without question, it was impossible under the globe for those German bombers to be within line of sight of the Knickebein towers. But Knickebein did work, and English lives were lost as Churchill's scientific advisors couldn't believe in the VHF Knickebein system when the Earth's curvature should have made it impossible. Very high frequency requires a direct line of sight. Wikipedia confirms the same as it reads, as the transmitters were more or less in line of sight to high-altitude bombers. This article here confirms it as well. But as I just showed, Wikipedia lied, as German bombers would have been nearly 100,000 feet below the globe's geometric horizon and certainly not within line of sight of the towers. There you have it. Only under the Flat Earth model could the Knickbein system work, and the globe propagandists have no counter-argument but to lie and claim that the bombers were somehow in line of sight of the Knickbein towers when that would have been mathematically impossible. German bombing beams proved there is no Earth curvature.
In the middle part of the 19th century, a man named Christian Doppler noticed that objects that emitted sound would produce either a rising or falling pitch to an observer, depending on the movement of the object relative to the observer. For example, an object which was producing a sound when moving toward an observer, such as a train, would produce a higher pitched sound as the object approached an observer. Likewise, a lower pitched sound would occur when the sounding object moved away from an observer. We know this today as the Doppler effect. Late in the 20th century, we merged radar technology with the Doppler effect, and we came up with Doppler radar, which is currently on your screen. Moisture shows up on Doppler radar much like it does on traditional radar, with one large exception, which makes Doppler radar superior. The Doppler radar unit detects the direction in which the moisture is moving relative to the Doppler unit itself. For example, moisture heading toward the Doppler radar may appear green, while moisture or precipitation heading away from the Doppler unit may appear red. The different colors tell meteorologists much more information than traditional radar can produce. In fact, it is the only tool that can be used outside of direct human observation to detect a funnel cloud or tornado. That is the hook image you see highlighted in this Doppler radar image. It is important to note that Doppler radar has no computation or compensation built in for the direction in which the signal is returned. In other words, an object moving toward the radar unit will shift the image towards green if the precipitation is moving toward the unit itself. It doesn't matter if the returned image is to the north or to the south or to the east or west. The Doppler radar unit is stationary and treats all returning signals alike, regardless of the directional source of the returned signal. And thus, with the spinning ball Earth that we are told exists, we've got a big problem. You see, if the Earth is rotating at somewhere between 750 to 1,000 miles per hour to the east, depending on the latitude of the radar unit, the Doppler effect would be totally negated by the Earth's rotation. Any echoes from the west would necessarily be moving away from the Doppler unit at 750 to 1,000 miles per hour, plus or minus the actual speed of the moisture that's moving itself, while echoes to the east would be rushing toward the radar unit at the same speed. All the other angles in between would create an almost infinite and nightmarish computation for the radar unit to sift through in order to make sense of the echoes received. The bottom line is, there is no computation or correction for any Earth movement whatsoever. The radar unit interprets all echoes the same, regardless of the compass direction. Doppler radar would be a total impossibility on a moving Earth. It simply would not exist. It would not and could not work if the Earth is a spinning ball.
On December 12, 1901, Guglielmo Marconi received a transatlantic radio transmission at a distance of 2,135 miles. With the transmission tower height and elevation added in, at that distance, nearly 640 miles should have been hidden behind the Earth's curvature. 640 miles is enough to hide the United Kingdom if it were standing straight up. That is a very tall shadow. In my previous Flat Earth Fact number 11 video, I described how the World War II German Knickbein bombing radio guidance system was not initially investigated because English scientists, including Churchill's scientific advisor, stated the curvature of the Earth would block the VHF beams, and so the targeting system could not exist. The advisors were mathematically right, But English lives were lost because the Knickbein system in fact existed, proving there was no Earth curvature. Likewise, naysayers told Marconi that it would be impossible to send a radio transmission over 200 miles, let alone 2,000 miles, because the curvature of the Earth should have blocked the transmission. Again, the naysayers were mathematically correct, but Marconi accomplished the feat and has been repeated many times at much further distances. Because of Marconi, the ionosphere theory was then fabricated, claiming that the radio waves bounced off of the ionosphere. For Loran, the explanation is that the radio waves hugged the surface of the water. For Knickbein, since the beams were VHF, the issue has been avoided entirely, as Wikipedia and others have simply lied about the math and said that the Earth's supposed curvature wouldn't have been an issue at those distances. Do you see the pattern here? Repeatable scientific evidence proves the Earth is demonstrably flat. In response, new pseudoscience nonsense is discovered, somehow justifying why the Earth's curvature somehow always evades detection and disappears without a trace. Marconi's 2,000-mile transmission is another proof of the flat Earth. In my last video, I discussed Marconi's 2,135-mile radio transmission that was supposed to be impossible under the globe model. Based on the globe math, that radio signal should have been approximately 640 miles over Marconi's head, but it wasn't. We talked about Knickbein and how English lives were foolishly lost because English scientists erroneously believed in the Earth's curvature that was supposed to be blocking German VHF bombing beams. According to the globe math, those German VHF beams should have been 100,000 feet above the German bombers, but they weren't. We have also talked about Loran and how Loran was used as a navigation system that could pinpoint the location of a boat 1,000 miles away from the station, again demonstrating there is indeed no Earth curvature. In addition to these examples, sonar also unequivocally proves there is no Earth curvature. In addition to finding enemy submarines, sonar can be used for mapping the ocean floor. Ridges, hills, trenches, and sunken vessels are all easily mapped with sonar. Despite the detail of modern sonar mapping, no one has ever mapped or detected the Earth's curvature using sonar. When a Navy ship actively sends out a sonar ping, it will generate an acoustic shadow, where the sound waves are blocked by underwater obstructions, like boats, rocks, hills, and ridges. You can see the acoustic shadow produced by these sonar images. These shadows are sometimes used by submarines to hide from detection. However, as confirmed by former Navy sonar technicians, which has not been challenged by anyone, sonar has never produced a globe curvature acoustic shadow. If the globe were real, modern submarines, operating at a depth of 1,600 feet, could remain hidden from surface ships at 80 miles by hiding in the curvature shadow. Depending on the varying depths, a submarine could remain undetected from another submarine at a mere 25 miles by just hiding in the Earth's curvature shadow. However, no submarine has ever hid behind the Earth's curvature to evade detection, proving there is no curvature. That brings us to another U.S. government proof of the flat Earth, which is called SOSUS, the Sound Surveillance System. SOSUS was a once classified passive sonar submarine location system used by the United States to locate Soviet submarines. Essentially, underwater listening devices called hydrophones were anchored to the ocean floor at key locations. These hydrophones could detect low-frequency sound waves emitted by submarines thousands of miles away. Once the sound waves of the submarines were detected by multiple hydrophones, the location of the submarine could then even be triangulated. Think about it. Could a submarine's very distant location be triangulated on a ball where there are supposed bulges of ground 100 miles tall between it and the hydrophones? At a curvature drop rate of approximately 8 inches per mile squared, the Earth's curvature should be easy to measure and detect in many ways. However, above water or below water, radio signals, sound waves, and VHF waves, high-altitude balloons, or just simple long-distance photography and lasers, the alleged Earth's curvature always seems to disappear without a trace And that should cause any independent, thinking, reasonable person to realize there's a major problem with the globe. Regardless, the sonar flat earth proof is pretty simple. Because there is no earth curvature acoustic shadow, there is no earth curvature, and that's a fact. For the last few years, globe propagandists have been sharing pictures like these, showing what appears as though Mount Rainier is casting a shadow upwards onto the clouds above the mountain, supposedly proving the Earth is a globe, since the sun seems to be at a lower physical angle than the mountain. Here's a simple diagram illustrating the globe claim. The sun is at the bottom left corner. The mountain, on top of the ball Earth, is casting a shadow upwards onto the bottom of the cloud. If we compare my diagram to an actual photo of Mount Rainier, the globe claim seems plausible, but the claim is entirely false, and instead proves the Earth is flat. Here is a globe supporting article that makes the same false claim, and you can find similar arguments on anti-flat Earth websites like this one. Now, the YouTube channel P-Brain absolutely destroyed this juvenile globe argument with actual time-lapse videos filmed from the tops of mountains. I'll have a link to P-Brain's videos on the subject in the description. In short, based on actual time-lapse footage filmed from the tops of mountains, mountains always cast a shadow downwards onto the clouds. There is no upward shadow time-lapse filmed from the top of a mountain. But when the mountain shadow is filmed from below, it appears as though the shadow is pointed upwards based only on perspective. P-Brain has a great little diagram at the bottom of the screen showing how the mountain shadow is casting a downward shadow onto the lower clouds, which is supported by the actual video footage. But when someone films this from a lower vantage point, perspective creates the illusion that the shadow is pointed upwards, when in fact that the shadow is pointed downwards. We know the globe claim is false since there is no time lapse of a mountain's shadow being cast upwards towards the clouds, filmed from an observer on top of a mountain. But what I think is important is the fact that because there is never an upward shadow filmed from an observation point on top of a mountain, the globe has to be false. These time-lapse videos prove the Earth is flat. But something else has been overlooked in this debate. Let's get back to my diagram. Let's take away the mountain and lower our shadow. Do you see the problem of the globe? There should be a massive Earth bulge casting an upward shadow onto the clouds. In fact, if the globe were real, we'd see this upward curved shadow cast on the clouds on a frequent basis looking something like this. Have you ever seen an Earth bulge shadow on the bottoms of the clouds above you, moving rapidly across the sky? I certainly haven't. If the globe propagandists were correct, and Mount Rainier did cast this supposed upward shadow as the globe would require, then the physical Earth bulge itself would cast the same type of shadow. There is no Earth curve shadow, and that's a big problem for the globe. This video will be a supplement to my last Flat Earth Proof number 16 video. Please watch that video first if you haven't. In that video, I discussed two related topics. First, I explained how one of the globe propagandists' favorite arguments regarding Mount Rainier, upward shadows, was provably false. A big thanks again to P-Brain for first presenting this argument. The globe claim is that when the sun allegedly sets at an angle lower than the base of Mount Rainier, like in this diagram, the mountain allegedly casts an upward shadow onto the underside of the clouds above Mount Rainier. Despite the initial appearance, these photos do not show an upward shadow caused by a sun which is angled lower than the horizon. These mountain shadows are simply downward shadows, as proven from time-lapse footage and photographs from mountain summits. These shadows only appear to be upward shadows based on perspective when filmed from below. Photos like these are always filmed from a lower elevation. No photo or video exists from the summit of a mountain showing an upward shadow of the mountain cast onto the underside of clouds above the observer. Second, in my video I discussed the overlooked fact that because there is no upward Earth curve shadow caused by a sun at a lower angle than the observer's horizon, like in this diagram, there cannot be a globe. Under the globe model, there should be a giant upward Earth bulge shadow racing across the underside of clouds from east to west that would look something like this. In fact, the positions of the globe propagandists are mutually exclusive. One cannot reasonably claim that this is a picture of an upward shadow of a mountain on the underside of clouds and then ignore the fact that there is no similar Earth bulge upward shadow. Furthermore, under the globe, this Earth bulge upward shadow would then overtake the alleged Mount Rainier shadow as the angle of the sun continues to dip further below. Obviously, this has never happened. The globe proponents have responded to my video with this video from propagandist Bob, and I assume it's the best counter-argument they could come up with. Of course, many of you will not be shocked about this, but instead of actually addressing what I thought were my too easy-to-understand arguments, Bob instead resorted to misrepresentation, red herrings, and deceiving his viewers. Regardless, Bob's sleight of hand and dismal failure to actually address my 2 points only confirms the weakness of the globe propagandists and gives me the opportunity to address this no upward Earth curve shadow, flat Earth proof in more depth. Let's begin with point number 1. This is not an upward mountain shadow. Here is a clip from Bob's response video.
Now, there was a flat earther by the name of P-Brain and I that went round and round on this about a year and a half ago, and it got so bad that P-Brain actually falsified some of his evidence to try and prove me wrong. Nobody bought it. Now, Taboo Conspiracy is trying to go down the same path with this, and that is that he put up some ambiguous pictures of the shadow of Mount Rainier being cast on the clouds above it. Now, every single one of them showed the shadow starting at the peak of Mount Rainier, because that's his argument, that the mountain is actually above the clouds rather than below it. So I thought that I would show this one right here. I think that anybody that is honest with themselves can see very clearly that that mountain peak is well below the cloud level, and the shadow is being cast upward onto the clouds. There's a continuous cloud deck over the mountain. The shadow is clearly angled upward.
Bob first claimed that I somehow only used ambiguous pictures and avoided this special photo that he's using. Sorry, Bob. I used a lot of photos of the same event, and here is the same photo you used that was actually included in my original video. I didn't avoid anything, but I'm willing to call that mere sloppiness on your part. Secondly, and more importantly, Bob completely avoided P-Brain's argument by again using a photo from below Mount Rainier to repeat this juvenile globe fallacy. Despite the appearance, that shadow is being cast on clouds below and maybe slightly horizontal to the mountain peak. There is no shadow being cast above the mountain onto the underside of the clouds. If you look closely, those clouds in the shadow are likely slightly below the 2 highest points of Mount Rainier. You can see it's just the 2 highest points of the mountain casting the shadow, as the shadow lacks the width and features of the entire mountain. The lighting and perspective only create the illusion that the clouds are above the mountain. Even some flat earthers would claim that the sunlight is instead reflecting off of the ocean water and casting an upward shadow. Although plausible, they're mistaken as well. So how can I say this with certainty? You just need to apply some logic here. If this mountain shadow were an upward shadow, caused by the sun being at an angle lower than the base of the mountain, as claimed by the globe proponents, then this event would frequently happen at both sunrise and sunset, depending on where the mountain is located. Thus, If you were on top of Mount Rainier at sunset, you'd see that upward shadow above your head on the bottom of the clouds, well above your vantage point if the sun were truly angled below the base of the mountain. But this upward shadow never happens, and Bob certainly did not provide any evidence otherwise. This is called negative evidence. It is the absence of what should happen under a given set of circumstances. And this is key. The observer must be at the very top of the mountain. If the observer is below the top, then there will be a perspective illusion of the shadow being cast above the mountain. For example, you can't look at something like these light poles and claim that since this light pole appears taller than this light pole, that this light pole must be physically actually taller. The only way to truly determine respective sizes is to place yourself at the same height of the light pole. For you flat earthers who think this is showing a reflection of sunlight off of water resulting in an upward shadow, then please show me this upward shadow being cast on the underside of clouds filmed at the vantage point on the peak of a mountain. Fortunately, a lot of people like to take pictures and videos on top of summits at sunrise and sunset because it looks awesome. There is substantial proof that this upward shadow never happens, as there is ample footage from the tops of mountains like these at sunrise and sunset. As you can see from multiple photos, videos, and even time-lapse videos filmed from the correct vantage point on the summit, the shadow of the mountain peak tip only extends to the horizon line, which is based on the position of the photographer, so long as the observer is at the very peak of the mountain. As a contrary example, if there was snow blowing above the observer, then the shadow of the blowing snow will appear above the observer's horizon, like in this photo. Do you see the difference between this photo and the others? The observer here is below both the peak and the blowing snow, which again creates the illusion of an upward shadow. I really do like looking at these long mountain shadows. This video demonstrates what some call the longest shadow on Earth. I'm not sure about that, but it's beautiful. Here's an actual video of Mount Rainier's shadow. Notice again where the shadow ends, at the horizon. This one was filmed from Mount Hood in Oregon with a drone. How many of these do you actually need to see? I can't help the willfully blind and soulless lying propagandists who will continue to deceive. Obviously, Bob and his minions aren't going to concede the issue because they'd have to give up on the globe. Bob will continue to evade the argument and show pictures taken from below the mountain and pretend as though he has proven his point. But for the honest, objective, reasonable person, you must reach the obvious conclusion. There is no upward mountain shadow being cast on the underside of clouds as proven from ample photographic evidence filmed from the tops of mountains. But let's get to part 2, which is my primary point. No upward globe bulge shadow proves there is no globe. Here is Bob trying to explain the issue. He actually gets the first part right, in that this is a testable criterion and will prove it either way, sphere or flat.
Well, this seems like rather interesting evidence. This is a criteria, a testable criteria that Taboo Conspiracy is putting out for the flat Earth. So, if my understanding is correct, and you guys check me in the comments if I'm not, if we see this, that would be evidence of a spherical Earth. If we don't see it, that wouldn't necessarily rule out the spherical Earth. But the bottom line is, if we do see it, the Earth is clearly spherical.
You were close, Bob, but you didn't get that last part right. Let me rephrase your statement to make it correct. If we see this, namely a giant Earth bulge shadow moving rapidly across the bottom of the clouds from east to west, that would be substantial evidence of a spherical Earth. If we don't see this, then that would be substantial evidence the Earth is not a sphere. Does this upward curvature shadow happen? Has it ever been filmed? Has anyone ever photographed an obvious Earth bulge shadow traveling rapidly across the underside of clouds as the sun's angle lowers with respect to the observer's horizon line? This shadow would be overhead and would move quickly from east to west as the Earth supposedly rotates at 1,000 miles per hour. This same quick movement would apply to the alleged Mount Rainier upward shadow, and again, that doesn't happen. Maybe a mathematics or AutoCAD guru can give us a rough time frame of how long this Earth bulge shadow would be visible if we indeed lived on a rotating ball with typical overhead clouds. I think it would be quick, but I'd like to see the actual number. But I've made a couple more rough diagrams to illustrate the point further, because it really seems as though the propagandists are having a difficult time understanding this. For example, here's Bob either misunderstanding or misrepresenting my argument as his model has the Earth shadow wrapped over the clouds. Anyways, here's Charlie Brown standing on top of the ball Earth as he's supposedly starting to lean backwards away from the setting sun. The sun angle is coming in from the lower left corner, represented by the yellow arrow. If Charlie were to turn around to the east, he'd theoretically see the Earth's bulge shadow starting to hit the underside of the clouds. Now, we're a little further into our sunset, and the sun's angle is now lower with respect to Charlie. Charlie's shadow is a little longer, and the upward Earth bulge shadow should now be moving across the bottom of the clouds, traveling quickly from east to west as Charlie continues to allegedly fall backwards at 1,000 miles per hour. Now, Mr. Brown is entirely in the Earth shadow, but the Earth bulge shadow should still be hitting the bottom of the clouds and will continue to do so until all of the visible clouds are eclipsed by the moving shadow. If Charlie were to look up, he'd see the upward Earth bulge shadow running across the clouds, looking something like this. Of course, my illustration is showing a perfect example where there are clear skies to the west and clouds to the east, but this should still be a frequent event, visible at both sunrise and sunset. Also, if you add in some extra clouds in an airplane, shouldn't we get some interesting shadows on the underside of the visible clouds, rapidly moving across the sky? Simply stated, there is no evidence that the sun's angle ever gets lower than the horizon, which unequivocally proves the globe faults. Does Bob provide any evidence of this giant globe curvature shadow moving rapidly across the underside of the clouds from east to west? Of course not. Instead, Bob simply points out the obvious fact that the lower atmosphere to the east, that's to the east and away from the setting sun, is darker, with a pinkish hue above it. This pinkish hue is referred to as the belt of Venus, and it certainly does not prove a globe Earth. Let's hear a small clip of Bob's argument.
You can see an area of dark sky with an area of pink sky above it as you look to the east. That is the anti-twilight. But let's go back and look at the photograph again. What is this area of darkness right here? We are rotating into the shadow of the Earth. This is the shadow of the Earth. Exactly what Taboo Conspiracy is asking to see.
Did you catch it? Bob just lied. Here it is again.
Exactly what Taboo Conspiracy is asking to see.
No, Bob, I thought I was pretty clear. I asked for evidence of a giant globe Earth curvature shadow moving rapidly on the underside of the clouds, which would be strong evidence of a sun that is angled lower than the horizon of a spherical Earth, the lack of which is strong evidence that the Earth is flat. Bob's fallacy here is known as a straw man argument. Bob clearly misrepresented my easy-to-understand argument in order to try to defeat it. It's shameful and pathetic, even for Bob. Let's be clear. We all know the atmosphere gets darker away from the setting sun towards the east, and we all understand the globe claim that night is allegedly caused by the Earth's shadow. That is a red herring. We flat earthers have a much different understanding of what is causing that darkness in the east and subsequently nighttime. And it's not the Earth's shadow. This darkness is caused by the moving sun getting further away from the observer. I suggest everyone watch Dan Dimension's video regarding sunlight. I will have a link in the description. Flat earthers like me generally believe daylight is the ionization of atmospheric gases, which changes from the homosphere to the heterosphere, causing different colors to appear, including the belt of Venus. As you can see in this high-altitude footage, there's the darkness you see below the belt of Venus to the east, and the sun is still visible in the sky. The sun's reaction with atmospheric gases of the sky is limited in distance, and that's what causes your darkness to the east. I agree with Dan Dimension and the flat Earth theory that the termination line is the outer edge of the sun's plasma field, which matches this footage perfectly. But this issue has little to do with my original argument. If anyone is honestly interested in understanding how the sun possibly sets on a flat Earth, there are many good videos out there, including this one from Rob Skiba, this one from DITRH, this one from P-Brain, this one from me and Good Times for All, and this video of mine that explains my theory of how the sun sets on a flat Earth. I'll have links in the description. But let's get back to Strawman Bob.
Now here's an excellent image taken from a mountaintop, just as Taboo Conspiracy asked for, showing the shadow of the Earth, the belt of Venus, and the thin upper atmosphere off in the distance above the belt of Venus.
Did you catch that? He did it again.
Now here's an excellent image taken from a mountaintop, just as Taboo Conspiracy asked for.
There's the aphorism to never ascribe to malice that which can be explained by stupidity. But this is the second clear lie by Bob, and I don't think he's this stupid. I certainly hope there aren't sincere globe believers dumb enough to fall for this nonsense. No, Bob, I did not ask for a picture of darkness to the east away from the setting sun from a mountaintop. Bob has taken the part 1 argument that there is no photograph of the alleged upward Mount Rainier shadow from the vantage point of the top of a mountain and misrepresented that argument to debate whether darkness is visible to the east during a sunset from a mountaintop. Again, we all know it gets darker to the east away from a setting sun. Let's get to Strawman Bob's laughable conclusion, and hopefully this will be the last time you hear this joker on my channel.
Here's our situation. Taboo Conspiracy, you put a challenge out, and I have met it. You wanted to see the encroaching shadow of the Earth. I showed it to you. You wanted to see it from a mountaintop. I showed it to you. I didn't do it with one photograph. I did it with a number of photographs, including natural clouds and rocket plumes. So, are you going to man up and show intellectual honesty and admit that the evidence shows that your challenge has been met? And will you make a video admitting that?
Seriously? You have the audacity to speak of intellectual honesty here? Totally misrepresenting both of my arguments is what you consider intellectual honesty? No, Bob, you did not even come close to meeting my challenge. First, I did not ask for pictures of the eastern band of darkness from a mountaintop far away from a departing sun. I asked for proof of the Mount Rainier upward shadow from the vantage point of a mountaintop, which is the only correct position to determine whether there is such an upward mountain shadow. Of course, this upward mountain shadow does not exist, and there are many videos and photographs filming both sunrises and sunsets from the tops of mountains showing exactly how the tip of the mountain's shadow ends at the horizon line so long as the observer is at the summit. I don't know how to make that any simpler to understand. Second, I did not ask for pictures of easterly darkness at the horizon and the belt of Venus, the opposite direction of a setting sun in the west. I asked for proof of an upward Earth bulge shadow racing across the underside of the clouds from east to west as the globe model and your claim regarding the supposed upward Mount Rainier shadow demands. I want to see proof of this unmistakable upward Earth bulge shadow zipping across the underside of clouds. If the Earth were a globe and the sun were truly angled lower than the horizon, then we should see this unmistakable upward bulge shadow frequently. The Earth bulge shadow does not exist. The sun is never angled lower than the horizon, producing an upward shadow. Ergo, there is no globe. Of course, I don't expect Bob to acquiesce and admit he's wrong, as he would have to admit the globe faults. I do expect Bob to continue to misdirect, lie, and present strawman arguments, as that is what liars do. Nevertheless, Bob did unwittingly give us another clear look into the intellectual dishonesty of the globe propagandists. In addition, Bob's utter failure to counter these flat earth proofs only evinces how intellectually vapid the globe position truly is.
Exactly what Taboo Conspiracy is asking to see. Now here's an excellent image taken from a mountaintop, just as Taboo Conspiracy asked for. Taboo Conspiracy, you put a challenge out, and I have met it. Are you going to man up and show intellectual honesty and admit that the evidence shows that your challenge has been met? And will you make a video admitting that?
The combination of high-powered lasers and ultra-zoom cameras like the Nikon P900 have destroyed the globe narrative for those who are willing to open their eyes and see. Our flat earth reality is evident, with demonstrable and repeatable testing that anyone can perform. As always, you don't have to take my word for it. Go out and test it yourself. As proven with engineering software, the globe model mandates that all bodies of water must have a noticeable degree of convexity and would drop away from the observer on all sides approximately 8 inches per mile squared, a mathematical expression that is very accurate up to even a distance of 1,000 miles. However, I'll be using an online globe curvature calculator like this one to make accurate calculations really simple with both observation heights and distances taken into consideration. The following laser test will prove that there is no globe Earth curvature and therefore no globe. Let's begin. For this test, Grota 1 drove his snowmobile on a frozen lake with a green laser shining behind him. That's the same Grota 1 who conducted this frozen lake colored light test, demonstrating a very flat frozen lake over a distance of 8 miles, which I'll discuss more in a subsequent video. But for this earlier test, Grota 1 drove his snowmobile across a frozen lake while maintaining line of sight to the laser that was 2.4 feet above the lake's surface. With all successful laser tests, you need clear, consistent air without miraging and other atmospheric distortions and a direct line of sight like here. Defying the globe, Grota 1 drove 7.5 miles and could still see the laser source as shown here and even the laser light shining on his hand. Under the globe, at that distance, he would have had to have been 21 feet high to see the laser source over the supposed frozen hump of curved water. Do you really think that frozen lakes have a giant, frozen hump between two opposing shores? The nonsensical globe simply does not match reality. The next test was conducted by Flat Earth Perth in Australia. The laser was at 8.2 feet off of the water. The camera was 1.3 feet off of the water at a distance of 9.54 miles. The globe mass says that 24 feet should have been hidden behind the Earth's curvature. In contradiction to the globe model, you can most certainly see the laser source. This next laser test was conducted by D. Marble at the Pacific Ocean. The laser was at a height of 7 feet off of the water and was 10 miles away from the observer. The laser source is so bright that D. Marble was able to even film it with his cell phone. The globe mass states that at that laser height and distance, an observer would have to be 30 feet high to see the laser source. Debunking the globe model, D. Marble brought his cell phone to just inches off of the calm water, and you can still see the laser source. Now, the propagandists have tried to claim that the laser source is only visible because the laser wasn't level. The argument is nonsense, as it is irrelevant. Under the globe, if the laser was angled downwards, you still wouldn't see the laser source as it would have been hidden behind the curved water. If the laser was angled upward, you still wouldn't see the bright laser source. Next, we have a laser test by a PhD who goes by the name Dr. John D. That's the same PhD who filmed this footage showing a horizon more than 5 times further than the globe model would allow. To any honest thinking person, that footage alone destroys the globe model. But for this laser test, the distance was 9.5 miles. The laser height was 0.5 feet off of the ocean water. The globe model says that the observer would have to be 50 feet high to see the laser source, but in this case, the observer was only 2.3 feet high. Proving the globe faults again, you can most certainly see the laser source. For the next 3 tests, a husband and wife team tested the alleged Earth curvature and discovered for themselves there is no Earth curvature over water and therefore no globe. For this test, the laser was 16.42 miles away from the observer and 4 feet off of the water. According to the globe math, the observer would have had to have been a whopping 130 feet high to observe the laser source. However, the observer's camera was only 2 feet above the water, and you could still see the source of the laser. Can you open your eyes and see that the globe has a major problem here? The next 2 tests were conducted at 10.4 miles, but on 2 different days. At 10.4 miles and a laser height of only 1 foot, according to the globe model, 57 feet should have been hidden behind the curvature. Of course, to find the globe, you can see the obvious laser source. Look at the reflection on the obviously flat water. The next day, they conducted the same test. Without question, he has direct line of sight to the laser source, not some mirage. All of this footage should be impossible under the globe. I have also conducted several tests at Utah Lake proving it flat, but this next laser test by a father-son team was awesome. It comes from the YouTube channel Level-Headed. For the test, the laser at a height of 5.5 feet was 13.7 miles away from the observer. At that distance and laser height, the observer would have to be 78 feet high to see the laser. As shown in the video, you can certainly see the source of the laser as it hits the camera. The cameraman even brought his camera down to just 9 inches above the water, and he was able to still film the laser, conclusively proving water does not curve at 8 inches per mile squared as required by the globe. That laser source should have been over 100 feet below the Earth's horizon, but it wasn't below any supposed water bulge. The next laser test was conducted by a truth-loving group of Muslims at the Sea of Galilee in Israel, or Palestine if you prefer. For the test, the laser was 3 feet off the water, which would mean the observer would have to be 59 feet to see the source of the laser under the globe. Instead, the observers filmed the laser just a few feet off the water. Not only can you see the source of the laser, but the reflection of the laser on the water unequivocally proves the water has no giant bulge between the laser and the observer. Again, no giant water bulge means no globe. For this next test, we have a couple from Romania testing the flat Earth off of the coast in Italy. The YouTube channel name is Paradox Romania. The laser height was 6.6 feet, and the distance was 9.4 miles. According to globe math, you'd have to be 26 feet high to see the laser source. Instead, the observer brought the camera down to just 2 feet. Israel, Italy, England, Australia, North America. There is no curvature anywhere. With many observers present, and after testing a mirror flash that was 18 miles away shown on this video, this laser source was also 18 miles away. This video comes from the YouTube channel Mike Bowl. The laser was approximately 5 feet high at 18 miles. That means that the observers would had to have been at over 155 feet in order to see that laser. Again, to find the globe, the observers filmed the laser just a few feet off of the water. Although more difficult with changes in elevation and more obstructions, you can also test the flat Earth with a laser on land. This test was brought to us by Mikey Smith, horizontally approved. For the test, Mikey drove to different spots along a very flat highway adjacent to railroad tracks in Saskatchewan, Canada. The laser was set up at approximately 5 feet above the railroad tracks. For the final test, Mikey drove 21.2 miles away from the laser. At that distance, the observer would need to be 227 feet higher than the laser in order to see the laser over the curvature hump. According to Google Earth, the laser was at an elevation of 1,912 feet, and the final observation laser test was at an elevation of 1,964 feet, a difference of 52 feet. The globe hidden was 227 feet. Mikey, as the observer, was at an elevation of 52 feet higher than the laser. Subtracting the higher elevation, Mikey still would have had to have been 175 feet higher at his location to see the source of the laser. Beeline the globe again, you can see the source of the laser 21.2 miles away. The view of that laser was 100% impossible under the globe. Water, land, ice, oceans, or lakes, the result is the same. The Earth is flat. I've shared these next 2 tests several times, and I can assure you that these tests were conducted honestly. This one was filmed by me at Bear Lake between Idaho and Utah. That laser was at a distance of 18.83 miles and at 5 feet above the icy water. Under the globe, I would need to be at 173 feet to see the source of this laser. I filmed the laser and its reflection at just 5 feet above the water. Absolutely no curvature is present. This was my furthest laser test so far, at a distance of 21.03 miles with a laser height of 5 feet. That is a globe hidden height of 223 feet. At just 5 feet above the water, I filmed the laser source and its reflection, proving the Earth flat. Obviously, it's a direct line of sight to the laser source, over 200 feet of missing curvature. Many people ask what kind of laser I use for the test. Well, here it is. I'll end with 2 very long observations from a group of well-educated researchers called FE Core. This video comes from the YouTube channel Decimal Z. These tests were conducted at Lake IJssel in the Netherlands. For the longest test ever recorded over water so far, the laser was 24.94 miles away at a height of 9.6 feet. That equals a Earth curvature hidden height of a huge 298 feet. That is almost enough supposed curvature to entirely hide the Statue of Liberty with its base and foundation included. Breaking the globe, the camera filmed the laser source at just 5 feet above the water. Finally, this test was at a distance of 17.8 miles. The camera filming the laser was only 2.8 feet above the water. Listen.
Okay, check this out, brothers and sisters. 28 kilometers in your face.
Wow. Awesome. That is awesome.
My camera is 85 centimeters above sea level.
Look at that. That's amazing. You can see it reflecting off the lake water.
Yeah.
That's astounding.
That's the nail in the coffin.
Yes, it is.
Oh, this is so great, but it's really awesome.
Any intelligent person who loves truth can reasonably perform these laser tests. The conclusion is clear. Regardless of the location, flat Earth is our reality. Of course, you can believe in omitted photoshopped cartoon images as your reality.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
You can believe in silly-looking space models and hope they're real. You can believe in Freemason astronauts dangling from wires and astronauts swimming in pools when they're supposed to be in space. You can believe in the ridiculous moon landings that supposedly took place 50 years ago, even though you can see the obvious 1960s movie set backdrops. You can continue to believe in computer graphics and fake images as your reality, and you can certainly live in your globe illusion. As for me, I seek the truth, not imaginary narratives, regardless of popularity. Flat Earth is a wonderful, fundamental paradigm shift that will awaken your soul, but it's up to you whether you'll accept the truth. I believe I have some interesting information to share with you today with respect to my Flat Earth Fact number 16 and Addendum A videos. Before I get to the positive developments, which I think you'll enjoy, so stay tuned, let me quickly address more globe propagandists as the no upward globe shadow proof of the flat Earth must have struck a propagandist nerve. The first one I want to share is from Simon Dan, exemplifying the dishonesty of all hired globe trolls. It's pretty funny that Simon Dan decided to use Strawman Bob's exact same ridiculous red herring fallacy. Listen to this painful clip from Simon Dan, which begins with a clip from my video. There should be a massive Earth bulge casting an upward shadow onto the clouds. In fact, if the globe were real, we'd see this upward curved shadow cast on the clouds on a frequent basis looking something like this.
Hey genius, that's called night. Wow, possibly the most amazing thing that a flat earther has ever said. And when I say amazing, I mean that in the sense of the worst possible way imaginable.
Does Simon Dan really not get it? Unfortunately for his soul, he probably does get it. But are his viewers this shockingly simple-minded to fall for this nonsense? As I said before, we all understand the globe claim that nighttime is allegedly caused by the Earth's shadow and the angle of the sun. But if the globe were real, the Earth's supposed shadow would continue in an upward angle until it actually hits all objects, and then even the clouds above us. Why is that so hard to understand? Belying the globe model, no one has ever seen or filmed this upward globe bulge shadow that should be visible at nearly every sunset and sunrise. Slapping your head and red herring fallacies aren't going to change that globe damning fact. Next, we have propagandist Wolfie6020, who made this video to supposedly show the sun's upward shadow.
And here is the money shot. Witness the destruction of flat Earth. When the sun came up, it was clearly several degrees below horizontal, and that is evident by the sunlight streaming upwards into the aircraft. You can see I put my finger up so that you could see the shadow.
You saw where the sun was at. Now look at that intensely upward angle of Wolfie's finger shadow. I'm pretty certain that this intense upward shadow is simply caused by refraction from the plane's rounded window. This type of refraction is testable and demonstrable. We're not talking about that imaginary magical refraction that somehow makes giant bulges of earth and water disappear without a trace. This is real refraction. The plane's rounded windows are simply bending the sun's light upward. Now, is it possible on a flat Earth that the apparent sun position can be at a low enough angle that the sun can produce a slight upward shadow, even without the aid of refraction from a plane's window? Maybe. As I have said before, I believe the sun is behind a lens or firmament, and so the apparent position of the sun, a few thousand miles away at its sunrise or sunset, could theoretically produce a very slight and probably not discernible upward shadow at extreme altitudes. However, under the flat Earth model, the sun can never be angled from below the physical flat Earth plane. But this is where the globe propagandists, like Wolfie, absolutely lose, as they ignore the mutually exclusive positions of the upward shadow claim. You cannot have an upward shadow of a sun angled from below the geometric physical horizon of the Earth and not also have the physical Earth bulge cast a similar upward shadow. This is really simple to understand, Wolfie. You supposedly filmed your finger's upward shadow. Well, the giant physical bulge of the Earth should be casting an upward shadow as well, and at a similar angle which should have appeared before your finger shadow at sunrise, and then overtake all other shadows at sunset. Show us the Earth's physical bulge shadow moving across the inside of your cockpit, and then show us the same Earth bulge shadow cast on the underside of clouds. That would be your victory dance for the globe, if it were real. Of course, you will not show this footage, as the sun is never angled below the Earth's physical flat plane. Without reasonable question, no upward Earth bulge shadow proves the Earth is flat. And that brings me to proposed tests that prove the Earth's shape either way, and these tests will also apply to those few concave Earth proponents, as your concave Earth should also demonstrate its shape and the angles of shadows. I received an email from an architect from the United Kingdom. According to him, he's a 62-year-old flat earther and has 40 years of experience in architecture. And it doesn't matter whether you believe his credentials, as it's the information and modeling that is vital here. Before I begin, I strongly recommend you pause this video and go to the architect's YouTube channel right now. It's called Shadow Reveal. Subscribe to his channel, as further testing and debate will continue primarily on his channel. He also said that he'll be putting out more videos on the topic, which I'm looking forward to. I'll have a link in the description. This is what he wrote to me in part. As a bit of a background, I'll explain how I stumbled on this. I noticed something just prior to Christmas past which stuck in my head. I live in a small seaside town. A lot of trees were removed from neighboring properties towards the end of last year, which allowed the early morning winter sun rising over the sea to shine through the bushes to the east onto my kitchen window. Since moving here, I hadn't seen this before, so it drew my attention. A strong shadow of my kitchen window was cast on the opposite wall. Nothing surprising in that, but as I looked towards the sun, it seemed to be down the hill and lower than the house. However, I noticed that the height of the head of the window shadow on the wall was lower than the actual window head. Although I noticed it, the significance didn't strike me until I watched your Mount Rainier videos. At that point, I realized that the sun had to be higher than the house, even though I thought I was looking down the hill at it. In a nutshell, I believe that whichever of the following statements is proved true will definitively show whether we live on a globe or on a flat Earth. If the Earth were a globe, then the shadow of any object formed on a vertical surface must rise to a height greater than that object as the sun sets over a lower, unobstructed physical horizon. If the Earth was flat, then the shadow of any object formed on a vertical surface can never rise to a height greater than the height of that object as the sun sets over a lower, unobstructed optical horizon. I was inspired to make a 3D Blender model to observe different sun position shadows. As an architect, I know that a picture paints 1,000 words and an animated 3D model paints 10,000. From the observations revealed by the model, I propose that simple observations are all that is needed to show our realm is flat. Also, simple observational experiments could be devised to show this to be the case almost anywhere. Arguably, the best would be made in a tall building with a shadow overlooking the sea. It could be the case that the shadow of that window on a wall in the room would regularly cast higher than the window itself if we live on a globe. If the Earth is flat, then the shadow of the window on the wall will rise slow, almost to a stop, and then fade out as the sun fades. It will never be higher than the height of the actual window head. A desert setting might also be good, as atmospheric distortion could be less. The fact is that this could be tested in the simplest ways. On the beach, overlooking the ocean, a post shadow on a wall. Indeed, does a person's shadow on a wall get taller as the sun goes down? I may make another video to illustrate the numerous observations that could be made and explore some of the model observations that aren't included in the first one. For example, the deceleration of the flat shadow as opposed to the constant speed of the globe version. This in itself would be a flat Earth proof, but perhaps a little harder to follow. I am also beginning to think that the shadow speeds may reveal some truths as to the distance of the sun. I fear that calculation, however, may require a more mathematical mind than mine. That's all I'm going to share of his email, but I do want to say that others have noticed this phenomenon as well. I remember Jeranism on the Globebusters a few years ago also mentioning the fact that he's never seen a shadow from a sunset appearing on his ceiling through a simple window. This architect's argument builds on that fact. I will be showing the architect's whole video at the end of this video in a few minutes, but look at this awesome Blender model. This is the globe model here. Notice what this is right here. That's the upward Earth bulge shadow that would overtake all other shadows that I mentioned in my Flat Earth Fact number 16 videos. It's much easier to see it than to explain it. Without question, if the Earth were a globe, this Earth bulge shadow would appear all the time, quickly preceding all other upward shadows at sunrise and overtaking all other upward shadows at sunset, just like you see in this model. Shadow Reveal calls it the alleged globe shadow of the physical horizon, and that's a good description. I consider that the ultimate shadow test of the shape of the Earth. If the upward globe physical horizon shadow exists, it unequivocally proves a globe-type model. If the upward shadow does not exist, then the Earth is flat. I consider this test even better than a force the line type test. It's so simple, and there's no debate here. Just red herrings, straw man arguments, and a bunch of morons slapping their heads, pretending as though they don't understand. In addition to the physical horizon shadow test under the globe model, like you see here, the shadow of the pillar must rise higher up the wall than the pillar itself. Essentially, the globe will produce a measurable upward shadow on all objects in sunlight, and the shadows of all objects should always rise higher than the objects themselves. Now, I said earlier that I think it's theoretically possible for a shadow to appear upward in a flat Earth model, but the angle would probably be so minute that it wouldn't even be measurable, but I still agree with what Shadow Reveal is saying here. So, if you were looking at two buildings 50 stories high next to each other, and the first building was casting a shadow onto the second building, essentially the first building would never cast a measurable shadow higher than the building next to it. This is where many of you could contribute by either filming these shadows or sharing your mathematical or drafting expertise. There are many places in the world that these types of tests could be conducted. Anyways, watch this video and let me know what you think. Again, head over to his channel to subscribe, and the link is in the description. A big thanks to Shadow Reveal for your participation and thoughts on this. And this is why I love Flat Earth. Hello everyone, I'm back with another definitive laser test proof of the flat earth, and this may be my last laser test as I'm moving my family to Tennessee. A big thanks to Robert Scott and Matt, the organizer of the Utah Flat Earth meetups, who both helped with these laser tests. Matt's son was also there to help. It has been a lot of fun to go out and do these tests with like-minded friends. Robert is also moving out of the country in a couple of months. I will certainly miss you, my friend, but I think we will all meet together someday in this life or the next. These laser tests I'm sharing today were conducted at Utah Lake on March 25th, 2022. Let's begin with our first and shortest test. If you remember, I've actually been to the spot at Utah Lake before. My wife and I were at the same location in December 2017 in freezing conditions. Instead of a laser, my wife held a spotlight at the opposite shore, 7.53 miles away, and I filmed her place the spotlight onto the ice when she should have been well hidden 21 feet below the Earth's curvature bulge. For this latest test, Robert started here on top of a hill on the west side of the lake at these coordinates. I was located to the east at this location. I was 7.56 miles away from Robert. At approximately 40 feet above the water, according to the globe math, Robert's laser should not have been hidden behind the Earth's alleged curvature. In other words, under the alleged dimensions of the globe, I should have had a direct line of sight with Robert's laser. This is what it looked like from Robert's point of view.
Okay, Ben, shoot it. Okay. I'm on. There he goes. There he goes. Oh, beautiful. Very good. Okay.
This is what it looked like from my point of view.
Okay, where were you? Right there.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Okay, now I got a hit. Are you on the hill?
Yes, I am.
Oh, that's kind of cool looking.
Are you filming it?
Yep. Whoa, direct hit.
Is that the direct hit there?
I'll tell you when. There. There.
Yeah, I see exactly where you're at now.
Oh, very bright. After being on the hill, Robert brought his laser down to the shore, to this location, to where the globe model claims that there was now supposedly an Earth bulge between us. And there isn't really a difference. Using a globe Earth curvature calculator and Robert's laser height of only 2.17 feet above the water and a distance of 7.52 miles, I would have to be 22 feet above the water to film Robert's laser over the Earth's supposed bulge. Define the globe again. My camera was only 2.5 feet above the water. You can see some atmospheric distortion over that distance, but the laser intensity pierces it. Anyways, watch my video, and then Robert's video will follow.
There it is. I saw it for a second. Keep going. There we go. Direct hit. Yep, there. 3 feet off the water. Oh, very bright. Oh, cool. Yep, got it on footage. Yeah, I did. Try it and do it again now. There, that's Ben's laser now. We're down by the shoreline. Sweep it again, Ben. There we go. Do it slowly.
Give me a stick like you had. Oh, it's right there. Just twist it.
Ouch! Wow! One more time.
And it won't break it.
Okay, that's great.
Well,
Yep, that's it.
Just go to the pile.
Direct hit. Very good.
What's also interesting is the fact that even at 7.5 miles, you couldn't see Robert's laser at all unless it was pointed directly at me. Even knowing where Robert was, it still took me a few minutes to find him on the other shore because his laser had to be pointing directly at me. Even the slightest movement removed all visibility. In other words, you could never see a theoretical arcing laser over a curvature hump as it would lose all intensity, and you most certainly wouldn't see this laser reflection on the water if it weren't truly flat. This is some cell phone footage of Robert's laser. There is simply no Earth curvature. After the 7.5 mile test, we both relocated for much longer tests. I relocated to this position on the north side of Utah Lake. Robert headed to the south side at this location. Robert's laser was at a height of 38 inches or 3.17 feet above the water. According to the Globe Earth calculator, at that laser height and a distance of 17.57 miles, I would have to be a huge 158 feet above the water to see his laser. Instead, my camera was at 40 inches above the water. Here is a video of our position followed by my video of Robert's laser.
Okay, there's the water right there. Just sitting on a rock. 40 inches off of the water. Robert is over that way. Say what, between... Okay, keep going. I saw your dot.
We haven't seen the direct hit yet.
No, yeah. I can hardly see your laser. I hardly saw your laser.
Okay, try this now.
Ready.
Here, I just can turn off my flashlight.
Go.
Tell me when you see it, okay? I'm gonna sweep.
So,
okay.
I see a little bit.
Sweeping. Oh, you almost were direct just a moment ago.
Oh, there it was.
For a moment. Right there.
Oh, perfect.
Right there, yep.
Are you seeing?
Good shot there.
Keep going.
Keep shining. Oh, you had it perfect for a moment.
So you're 17 miles away?
17 and a half.
Okay, and how high are we off the water with my camera right now,
I can measure.
Are you getting me, Ben?
Yeah, I'm getting just a pale light. We had just a glimpse of a good shot there.
You're 40 inches off the water.
Okay. Go, right there.
Oh, yeah, you had it right there. It was perfect. Just a tap.
There, there. Right there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We got you. How far are you from the water right now, Robert?
About 3.5 inches, 3.5 feet, I mean,
No.
maybe 40.
Daddy, can I see something?
So about 40 inches?
Yeah.
That's the same as us. We're also about 40 inches.
Daddy, I need to say something.
Okay, you seeing it right now?
Not right now. What? There's a little bit.
Yeah, we can see it. It's not direct on us, but we can still see the light coming
There's
out.
a bit. Yeah, direct.
It's direct exactly right now. Yep.
Very good. Wow. That's really good.
I can see it.
Are you flashing it, or is it just hit and miss?
I'm just sweeping.
Okay. So steady. You want us to send it back?
Yeah.
Hold on just a second.
Okay.
You see it now?
Yeah. It's gone for a sec, but yes.
I'm turning it on and off. So I'm just getting to see exactly where it is.
Try again. I just mess with my focus. Let's see if I can get a better focus.
Be careful, well, don't get it right.
Shine your laser again.
It is.
Can you sweep it around? There.
Yeah.
Oh, that is good footage right there. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Because we even have the reflection.
Oh, wow.
That's
nice one.
right on it, yep.
Let's send it back. Shall we?
Is it out right now?
Yeah, you can't get clearer than this. This is good. We had great results at 17.57 miles, and so we tried for one more distant spot before calling it a night. This is as far as you can reasonably get at Utah Lake. I stayed at the same location, and Robert drove to this location. He was now 18.29 miles away and at the same laser height. At that distance, I would have to be 173 feet high over the water to see Robert's laser. Let's check out my video.
He's recording now.
Okay, I'm recording now.
A minute ago.
Okay, keep moving it around. I'll tell you when we get good hit.
Tell me when you see it, Matt.
Okay. Oh, it just swept past us.
You shine back at him?
Yeah.
Just for a moment. Here, I can do it at the same time so you can point it back at us.
He's right there.
There we go. Have I got you?
No, I don't see you though.
Not direct, not.
Okay, there's a little bit.
Was. Oh yeah, that's good.
You got my eye on it, right?
Yep.
Don't see any reflection this time.
You were getting reflection last time?
Yeah, the reflection on the water.
Uh-huh.
But it is windy.
Hey, Dad,
Oh.
watch it.
Oh yeah, sorry.
You put it next to my eye.
My focus might be.
Okay, can you see it?
Yeah.
Yes. You're right on us. Great spot.
Good. Okay, Ben, let me take a picture of yours to see if I can get it. Well, tell me when you're done getting
18.29 miles and 0 curvature. Robert Scott and I have proven there is no curvature over Bear Lake at a distance of 18.83 miles. We have proven there is no curvature over the Great Salt Lake at a distance of 21.03 miles. We have now proven there is no curvature over Utah Lake at a distance of 18.29 miles. No curvature here, no curvature here, and no curvature here. The globe has struck out. With these laser tests, and all of the other laser tests I've shared by many different people, I think we have unequivocally proven that the Earth is flat. No curvature over all of these areas, which includes lakes, land, and oceans, proves there's no curvature anywhere. Thank you, everyone.